I never thought I'd share this, but some of what I'm about to tell you has never been revealed before. Out of the 7 blizzards I've researched, 2 of them hide stories that almost no one knows, moments so chilling, they were whispered only among survivors. I can still feel the icy wind biting through my imagination, see the fear in frozen eyes, and hear the silence that swallowed entire villages. What happened during these storms wasn't just cold, it was a force that crushed hope itself. Stay with me, and discover the secrets nature tried to hide forever. If you love real, chilling stories like these, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our ghost hunt family. 1 Buffalo, New York, the Great Blizzard of 1977 USA. I still remember the sound before I remember the cold. It was not the wind itself, but the way it screamed between buildings, like the city was being torn apart. On January 28, 1977, Buffalo did not feel like a city anymore. It felt like a frozen trap, and I was inside it. That morning, the radio said snow, but Buffalo always had snow. No one expected what came next. Within hours, the wind became violent. Snow moved sideways, not down. I stepped outside for a moment and instantly lost sight of the house across the street. The air burned my face, and breathing felt painful, like needles entering my lungs. Cars stopped moving everywhere. I watched a man abandon his vehicle right in the middle of the road. He tried to walk toward a nearby building, but after a few steps, he disappeared into the white wall of snow. I never saw him again. Later, we learned many people froze to death just meters away from safety. By afternoon, the city was silent. No engines. No footsteps. Just the endless roar of wind. Snow piled higher than cars, higher than doorways. Some people were trapped inside vehicles for hours, engines dead, heaters useless. When rescue teams finally reached them days later, many were found frozen in their seats, hands still on the steering wheel. Inside my home, the power was gone. The temperature dropped fast. I wrapped myself in every blanket I could find. My thoughts became slow and heavy, and fear crept in quietly. I kept thinking about how fast a human body can lose heat, how easy it is to fall asleep and never wake up. That thought alone kept me awake. At night, the storm felt alive. The house shook. Windows rattled. Snow pushed against the walls as if trying to break in. I thought about people outside, lost in the darkness, unable to see, unable to move. The blizzard did not care who they were. When the storm finally ended, Buffalo looked unrecognizable. Cars were buried. Streets were gone. Bodies were found days later, some only a short distance from their homes. In total, at least 29 people died, not from accidents, but from cold, exhaustion, and wrong decisions made in panic. Even now, years later, when I hear strong wind in winter, my chest tightens. The blizzard of 1977 taught us something brutal. Nature does not need monsters or ghosts. Sometimes, cold, wind, and silence are more than enough. 2 Dyatlov Pass, Ural Mountains, Russia. The cold here feels different. It is not just cold air. It feels heavy, like it is pressing down on your thoughts. Standing on Dyatlov Pass, I understood why silence can be frightening. The wind moves slowly, but it never stops, and it carries a feeling that something went very wrong here. It was February 1959 when 9 experienced hikers came to this place. They were young, strong, and trained for extreme winter travel. Looking at the slope, I can see why they chose it. It looks calm, almost harmless. That calm is a lie. When the weather turns, this mountain gives no warning. As I walked toward the area where their tent once stood, I kept imagining that night. The temperature dropped below -30 degrees. Wind howled so loud it could confuse the mind. What still shocks everyone is the tent. It was cut open from the inside. No careful exit. No shoes taken. Just panic. Standing there, I tried to picture what fear is strong enough to make trained hikers run into a blizzard half-dressed. Their footprints told the story better than any report. They walked, not ran, downhill toward the forest. That detail stays with me. It means they were scared, but also confused. Something made them leave, but something else slowed them down. The snow today covers everything, but back then, those footprints led rescuers straight into the dark trees. Near the forest line, I stopped where the first two bodies were found. They had tried to make a fire. Broken branches were high up on the trees, as if someone climbed desperately to see or escape something. I felt a tightness in my chest thinking about the moment they realized help was not coming. The others were found later, scattered, some with severe injuries. A cracked skull. Broken ribs. Injuries that looked like a car crash, yet there were no wounds on the skin. The mountain does that. Wind pressure, ice, and sudden collapse can destroy the human body quietly. What haunts me most is not the mystery theories. It is the human side. These people made choices under extreme fear, cold, and darkness. The blizzard stripped away logic. Every step they took made survival harder. Every minute stole more strength from them. When I finally turned away from the pass, my face was numb, but my mind was loud. Dyatlov Pass does not need monsters or secrets to be terrifying. The real horror is simple. In the wrong weather, even the most prepared humans are fragile. And this mountain never forgets that night. 3 Mount Hood, Oregon, USA. The snow on Mount Hood looks clean and quiet, but that silence is dangerous. When I stood there, the wind pushed against my body like it wanted to throw me off the mountain. It was hard to believe that people once thought this climb would be easy. In December 2006, 3 climbers came here thinking the same thing. The weather forecast was bad, but not terrifying. On Mount Hood, weather changes faster than human decisions. As the hours passed, the wind grew stronger, and snow began to fall so thick that the world turned white. No clear sky. No clear direction. Just cold and confusion. I tried to imagine their last clear moment. Boots crunching on snow. Breathing heavy but controlled. Then slowly, fear setting in. Temperatures dropped far below freezing. Wind speeds increased, cutting through clothes like blades. The body starts to fail quietly first. Fingers lose feeling. Thoughts slow down. Simple decisions feel impossible. They built a snow cave to survive the night. Standing near that area, I felt how exposed it was. Snow caves feel safe for a moment, but if the storm grows stronger, they can collapse or fill with ice. One of the climbers never came out alive. He died inside, trapped by cold and exhaustion, while the storm screamed outside. What happened next still feels unreal. When rescue teams came, they did not only face snow. They faced chaos. Helicopters could not fly properly. Winds pushed them sideways. At one point, a rescue helicopter crashed on the mountain. Even trained rescuers were now fighting for survival. That moment changed everything. The mountain was no longer just killing climbers. It was attacking anyone who came close. As I stood there, my face numb, I thought about the 2 climbers who survived. They spent days trapped, weak, hungry, and frozen, waiting for help that could not reach them. Time becomes strange in those conditions. Minutes feel like hours. Hope fades, then returns, then fades again. When the survivors were finally rescued, they were barely alive. Frostbite had damaged their bodies. Their faces showed shock, not relief. They had seen how fast things can go wrong on this mountain. Walking away from Mount Hood, I felt small. This was not a mystery story. It was not bad luck. It was a reminder. Nature does not negotiate. One wrong forecast, one delayed decision, and survival becomes a question instead of a plan. Mount Hood did not chase anyone. It simply waited, and that was enough. For Great Plains, Nebraska, South Dakota, Children's Blizzard of 1888 USA. The land here looks flat and open, but that is what makes it dangerous. When I stood on the Great Plains, the wind had nothing to stop it. It moved freely, fast and cold, and I kept thinking how helpless a person would feel with no shelter in sight. In January 1888, this place became a nightmare. That morning started calm. Children walked to school without coats, because winter had been mild. Teachers did not sense danger either. Looking at the empty fields now, it is easy to believe how quickly people were fooled. The sky can change here in minutes. By midday, the temperature dropped suddenly. A wall of snow rushed in with violent wind. What makes this blizzard terrifying is not just the cold, but the speed. One moment, children were writing lessons. The next, windows shook, and the room went dark. Teachers faced a terrible choice. Keep children inside cold buildings with no heat, or try to send them home. Standing near where one school once stood, I imagined that moment. The sound of wind screaming. Children crying. Teachers trying to stay calm while knowing they might be making the wrong decision. Some schools released students, believing home was safer. That decision cost lives. Children stepped outside and were instantly lost. Snow erased all paths. Wind knocked them down. Some were found frozen only steps from their homes. Others held hands and tried to follow fences, but the cold stole their strength quickly. Small bodies could not fight that storm. Those who stayed inside schools did not always survive either. Buildings had no insulation. No heat. Children huddled together, sharing warmth, while the blizzard raged for hours. Teachers wrapped them in coats and prayed the storm would end. Some students died sitting quietly, falling asleep from the cold, never waking up. When the storm finally passed, parents searched the fields in silence. Bodies were discovered slowly. A child near a fence. Another in a ditch. Many families lost more than one child that day. In total, more than 200 people died, many of them children. As the wind brushed my face, I felt a tight pressure in my chest. This was not a story of mistakes. It was a story of trust in normal weather that suddenly turned cruel. The children's blizzard showed how fast safety can disappear. Even now, the plains look peaceful. But I know better. This land remembers that day. And every winter wind feels like a warning that nature does not care who you are, or how young. 5 Mount Everest, sudden whiteout storms Nepal. The air on Everest feels thin and sharp. Every breath burns your lungs, and the cold is different here. It's not just ice, it feels alive, pressing into your skin, whispering that one wrong step can end everything. I can imagine what it must have been like for climbers caught in one of those sudden whiteout storms. In May 1996, climbers attempted the summit, full of hope, full of determination. They had trained, planned, and dreamed of this moment. But on Everest, the mountain does not care about dreams. Clouds gathered fast, swallowing the sun. Within minutes, visibility dropped to almost nothing. One climber I read about described how the snow fell so thickly that the slope disappeared under his feet. Every step felt like walking into the unknown. The wind here is not gentle. It lashes at faces, tears at clothing, and steals body heat faster than anyone can replace it. Those caught in the storm had to make impossible choices. Should they continue up to the summit or turn back to safety? Many chose to descend, hoping to find shelter, but the snow erased every landmark, every memory of the path. Panic grows quietly in these moments, and cold slows thought. Decisions that once seemed simple became life or death. I think about the climbers who huddled behind rocks or snow ridges. Their bodies shaking uncontrollably. Their minds foggy from hypothermia. Some left messages or notes, small signs of human hope and fear. I can almost see them pressing their hands to the snow, trying to feel solid ground, praying for help that could not reach them. The mountain was patient. It waited while frost crept into fingers and toes, while exhaustion stole strength, while hope slipped away quietly. Rescue teams tried to reach them, but helicopters struggled in winds over 100 miles per hour. Paths were covered in fresh snow every few minutes, erasing even the tracks of previous climbers. Every hour spent waiting was another hour the storm strengthened, another hour someone froze closer to death. Survivors later recounted the terror of standing alone, not seeing the next step, not seeing companions, only hearing the screaming wind and feeling the ice pressing in from all sides. When the storm finally cleared, some were rescued barely alive. Frostbite had taken fingers, toes, and hope from their bodies. Others were never found. The summit was empty, indifferent, and still standing tall as if mocking the human struggle below. Everest does not chase you. It simply exists, and in that existence, it can crush even the most prepared souls. Even reading their stories, I can feel it, the fear, the cold, the quiet panic. Everest storms are not just weather. They are reminders that nature is larger, faster, and far more unforgiving than any human can imagine. And sometimes, surviving is luck, chance, and every small decision made correctly under unbearable pressure. 6. Iran, the deadliest blizzard of 1972. Iran. The sky over Iran that day was gray and heavy, carrying a weight that no one could ignore. It was February 1972, and villagers in the northern regions were going about their daily lives, unaware that nature was preparing one of the deadliest storms in history. At first, it looked like a normal winter morning, with snow lightly covering rooftops and fields, but soon the clouds grew darker, thicker, and the wind began to howl like a living thing. People tried to finish their chores quickly, hurrying indoors as the temperature dropped rapidly. By midday, what started as a gentle snow turned into a monstrous blizzard. Visibility vanished. Fields and roads disappeared under walls of snow, and the wind shredded everything in its path. I imagine standing in the village then, hearing the roofs creak, the trees bend under the weight of snow, and children crying, confused and scared. Adults shouted, trying to herd livestock or gather families inside, but the storm ignored all efforts. Entire villages became trapped. Snow piled up so fast that people could barely move. I can picture someone stepping outside, only to vanish a few feet from their door, swallowed by the white chaos. Families huddled together, holding on to warmth and hope, but the cold seeped in slowly, quietly, and cruelly. Fear grew with every hour. People must have thought, will this ever end? Each minute felt like an eternity, every heartbeat amplified by the roar of the storm. Rescue efforts were nearly impossible. Roads were blocked, and communication was cut. Neighbors could not reach each other. By the time help arrived, some villages were entirely buried, and bodies were discovered days later, frozen and still clutching whatever warmth they could find. The death toll rose into the hundreds. Each life lost carried a story of desperation. A mother shielding children, a father attempting to save livestock, young men running through blinding wind trying to reach safety. Walking through the areas today, it is almost impossible to imagine the chaos of that day. Snow drifts have settled, the villages rebuilt, yet the memory lingers. The storm did not discriminate. It did not distinguish between the strong and the weak. It moved silently, quickly, and left devastation in its wake. Thinking about the survivors, I feel their relief mixed with guilt. They watched neighbors vanish, siblings freeze, and friends disappear, powerless to stop it. That feeling of helplessness must have been crushing. It is a reminder that nature's power is absolute and sometimes invisible until it strikes. Even now, the memory of the 1972 Iran blizzard reminds anyone who hears its story that survival is fragile. The wind and snow are not just elements. They are forces that shape lives and test the limits of human endurance. In that silence, after the storm, people learned that courage alone could not save them, only respect for nature's immense power could. 7. Alaska Wilderness, -40°C blizzard survival USA. The wind in Alaska is different from anywhere else. It's not just cold, it moves with purpose, pushing and cutting at every inch of skin it touches. Standing there, even now, I can feel how small a human is against it. The wilderness stretches endlessly, flat in some areas, hilly in others, and covered in snow so deep that it swallows footprints in minutes. In February 1994, a small group of hunters and explorers were caught in one of these brutal blizzards. They had been traveling from cabin to cabin, confident in their experience and knowledge of the land. But that day, the storm appeared suddenly, faster than anyone could anticipate. Snow fell sideways, wind gusts ripped through trees, and temperatures dropped below -40°. Every second counted. Every breath hurt. I imagine one man stepping outside his cabin, thinking he could find a better spot for the fire. Within a few steps, he disappeared into the white wall of snow. His companions called for him, voices swallowed by the roar of the storm. Panic set in quietly. They knew staying put might trap them, but moving without seeing anything could be fatal. Every choice carried danger. Every moment brought exhaustion, frostbite, and fear. The group tried to create small shelters, digging into snowbanks, using fallen trees as windbreaks. But even these were fragile. Snow drifted constantly, burying whatever protection they built. Fingers and toes went numb first. Thoughts slowed. Conversations became short, almost instinctual, as the mind fought to focus on survival. Some whispered prayers, others cursed the wind, and a few simply sat in silence, hoping to last until help arrived. Hours felt like days. Visibility was zero. Sounds were muffled. The blizzard seemed alive, moving with intention. The explorers could hear the snap of branches above, the hiss of ice in the wind, and the eerie silence that followed each gust. I imagine their faces. Frozen, tense, desperate. One wrong step, one moment of fatigue, could mean death. And for some, it did. Rescue teams faced their own nightmare. Roads were impassable, helicopters grounded, and even experienced Alaskans struggled to navigate the storm. When survivors were finally found, some had frostbite so severe that fingers and toes were lost. Others were weak, confused, but alive. The mountain had claimed time, energy, and strength, leaving only memory and caution behind. Walking through the area today, the snow seems peaceful. But the memory of that storm lingers in every drift, in every gust. It reminds anyone who hears it that Alaska's wilderness is unforgiving. Survival is fragile. Even the strongest, most prepared humans can be humbled in an instant by the relentless power of nature. And sometimes, the most terrifying enemy is simply the cold, silence, and wind that never stops.